Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today I want to do another sequence from scratch. This is just going to be a little bit of a sound design session in Serum for my preset pack. But as you can see, we are in the project for my high-tech from scratch series. And the reason for that is I want to do a little bit of a high-tech kind of sequence. So we're going to be working on kind of like an FM setup. I've just created extra little bit of kick and bass in here. And we're just going to lay out the sequence. Let's make a 1-bar loop here. So right now we just have a saw wave like this. And we'll lay that out over 16 bars so that we have something to loop and something to listen to while we sound design. So as I said, I want to do a high-tech kind of sequence, and the reason why I want to do that is because I want to experiment with being able to kind of trigger the sound randomly within Serum. So the way that I want to do this is I want to set up an 8th note here. Actually, let's do it like a 16 note because that's kind of the sequence that we're going for. This is going to be a 16 note length. And the way that I want to do this is I essentially want to do a either on or off modulation. Now I believe we can use the sample and hold for that. So we want to generate 16 notes kind of like chaotically. And we should be able to just set this to the chaos oscillator number 2. Unipolarly here. And then the same for this point here. And if we set this right here, it doesn't seem to be working. We have to put it the other way around. And the way that I would like to do this is I would like to subtract the other chaos oscillator from it. And I think the way that we can do that is like this. And now you can see it moving. If we now sync this to the BPM as well, and to 16 notes, we can probably set this up. That's always going to sum together. Let's see what happens if we set this down. I was hoping that at some point it would just be higher than the other. In this case, that doesn't really matter then. Okay, then we'll use it like this. So now we have like a volume modulation on it. It's not like turning on and off the way I wanted to. It's just randomizing the volume this way. But this is definitely something that we can work with. Let's now set up some kind of cool tone here. And the way that I'm going to do that is probably through a cool modulator in terms of FM. The way that I've been doing my FM is just drawing in the shape like right here and applying that to the noise oscillator. You can either do it to the noise oscillator, or actually, what is even better, is to do it directly in here. You just draw in the shape that you want. Like so. Like this is the same shape that we have here. And we're now going to try to FM this from oscillator B. We'll set this up a couple of semitones or a couple of octaves and just turn it up, see what happens. That is nice, but I would like to have a different starting tone. That is kind of cool, actually. Okay, I like that. And what we can do is use Chaos Oscillator 1 now, because we haven't used it yet. I don't really like how it's moving along. So instead, we're just going to use the note on random 1 here. That's also not really doing what I want. Can we use this same trick here? Because this seemed to snap instantly. Whereas before, when you hear it like the chaos oscillator on here, it's like moving up and down. What if I do this to chaos oscillator 1 and this, I guess, to the same bus even will work. Just all the way down. Okay, so that's not working. I don't like the way that it's like sliding into it. I want it to be instant. which is actually what is happening with the note on random 1. But then it's no longer a sequence. If I wanted to really play it like that, you would have arpeggiator here, of course. You can hear that it no longer has that sliding motion to it, which is exactly what we want. But obviously I cannot save this in the preset because the arpeggiator is actually outside of the preset. So we have to find a solution within the preset if that's even possible. I don't really think there is a way to do this. I guess the best way we can set up a modulation here is to just set up like an 8-bar modulation on the FM amount itself actually. And what we can also do to make this more interesting is modulate this here, actually with the chaos modulator. And again, we'll go one way. The fun thing is that we can now push this into something like a comb filter. Let's add some downsampling. Or maybe like some kind of strong distortion. We can set up our delay and reverb for the ambience. What I'm also going to do is link the high pass here or the low pass here from this EQ to the same LFO that is controlling the FM amount, just so that there's a little bit of extra movement with that same LFO. So cool thing that we can do here with this macro as well. So this will be the tone, and then we'll have the ambience. It's starting to get shape. It's not really doing what I wanted to do because obviously I had something planned that isn't really possible, I believe, in Serum. I was just hoping that there was a way to just randomly turn it on and off, and that way we could kind of set up the FM itself, but now we have to do things differently. What might still be interesting is using the LFO trick as well to use this as a modulator. Maybe on here actually. And then what you want to do is we probably want to set this off from key tracking, set this a little bit higher so that it just kind of acts on the higher frequencies. And then we want our modulation to be very specific as well. Let's reset this actually quickly before I forget that. We want this to be unipolar and very small. This might not be it, maybe like a flanger. Actually, let's go with a nice phaser. And then again, what you would really want is to randomize this in a way that it instantly snaps from one to the other, which is not possible. So I guess I'm just going to settle on the chaos oscillator because that's the best that we're going to get. I think this is getting a little bit too low here. And honestly, removing this is probably a good idea now. Now we still get that kind of movement that you're hearing from the LFO, but it's just overall a lot brighter, and the hi-hat is actually playing all the time, which is kind of what I'm going for here. We can maybe spice this up a little bit more by BPM syncing, and I hope that this doesn't behave in the same way in that it slides over to from one value to the other. I just really want this to snap from one value to the other. That's kind of it. Let's add this here. We'll call this wash out. You can imagine that this is a little bit more of a useful patch for the kind of darker type of psytrance, and that's really what I'm going for here. Now, one of the things that I've been doing a lot for all of these patches is that I take over one of the modulations with the mod wheel. I've talked about this before. We just do like this, and actually here we set this to not bypass but inverse, and then all the way up. What this essentially allows you to do is, let's say that we take this value here. I'll show you. We go to, again, the warp here. We essentially set up the same modulation as we have on the LFO. And then we have this inverse mod wheel and then all the way up, which basically tells the synth that anytime the mod wheel is not at 0%, we use the mod wheel to modulate the warp. Obviously, it has to be unipolar because this one is also unipolar. I think, in fact, this only works in unipolar mode, and in bipolar mode, this technique just plainly doesn't work. But now you can hear the effect. It will immediately turn off this modulation and start using the mod wheel for the same kind of modulation. So you can basically just put it in there manually. In this way, you kind of get your patches in a standard way with a standard modulation in there. But if you have something else in mind, you just use the mod wheel to basically take over the modulation that you want to take over. In this case, obviously, that is already pre-assigned, and it's just going to be the main modulation of the patch. Anyway, I do think that we need a little bit more spice to it. So what I want to do is use the remap to maybe map out these areas a little bit less, I guess. So let's push this up. Yeah, like this. This is kind of like a sharpness almost. It's actually a very complex patch. Sometimes what I think, like the way that I think about it is I see my patches and I see like 1, 1, 1, and then 2 here for the ambience. It's not really the case that just like the amount of modulations determine kind of how complex a modulation is or how complex a patch is. But sometimes I come across a preset where this has 10 modulations assigned to it, and this one has another 4 modulations assigned to it. Sometimes it does feel like I'm not putting in enough like work for my modulations to make them interesting, but really with this patch, the way that it's working out now, you can get some really interesting tones with the modulations that we have set up now. I've just quickly set up some MIDI learning here on my controller so that I can move these about here, as you can see. And what I'll do is I'll just play through it a little bit and give you some ideas of what the sound actually sounds like. And that's what you get then. And obviously one of the other parameters that you could modulate is something like this. I do personally think that the reverb is a little bit too big, even though we have set it, actually we can set it a bit lower, can give it some more like cutting out, filtering out, and we can just overall diminish it a little bit. Now we get something like this. It should be based a little bit more on the delay actually. So that's going to be the patch as well as the video. I hope you enjoyed that little sound design session. Honestly, it came out very, very differently than I expected because I had a plan going into this, but that just plainly didn't work. But I still think that the patch that we came out with is really, really cool. And I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you did by liking the video and subscribing if you're new here. That way you can really support the channel because it does help a lot. Also, if you want to support me financially, make sure to check out my Patreon page as well as my products on Gumroad. But that's going to be it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.